sometimes I want to preach to more people, but not necessarily pastor more people.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Boy, that is such a true thing is we love the big platforms.
Yeah.
But will we take on the spiritual responsibility for the people? Welcome to the Ministry Mix podcast, where we're bringing you real conversations for the souls and strategies of ministry leaders. I'm Phil Gifford, and I'm joined by my co-host, Richard Vogt.
Hey there.
Whether you are a seasoned pastor or ministry leader or just stepping into leadership for the first time, we're here to share stories, insights, and practical tips to help you lead strategically while caring for your soul. Each episode will dive into topics that matter for your mission, your calling, and your own personal growth. In this episode, we're talking about 4 dangers that are kind of lurking behind the push to grow a church.
Yeah.
And this is like, we're actually kind of talking about what this means. This is actually more of a what we're learning. This is like a therapy session for us right now a little bit.
Really.
Tee us up here, Richard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, just something I want to say, whenever I hear podcast Christian content, especially leadership based, I kind of wonder what are your qualifications? So Phil and I's churches have both grown 40-50% in the last calendar year. Yeah, you've doubled. Is that 50% or 100%?
I don't know. Depends on when you're
That's going by 100%.
Is that?
Yeah. So Phil's church is doubled. My church is going by 50-60%.
How's that feel?
Mine's big, but mine's bigger.
It's okay. Congratulations.
I'm just kidding. Listen, but
this is inherently the problem with church growth, right?
Well, and this is what I want to just kind of lay a disclaimer out for. Phil and I aren't mega church pastors. We both feel the pressure, I think, to grow. We both scroll Instagram and get jealous sometimes. It's just the reality. So I guess what I'm saying is when we talk about this, we're not talking about it from the seat of an expert, but more, this is what we're learning. This is what we're experiencing as pastors with growing churches that are finding pressure and struggle in the growth.
Yeah. And we want to grow. We are both people that by our own disposition, we want churches that are growing. We want to engage our community. If you've listened to this podcast at all, you know that we are strategic, we are intentional, and we want to grow churches. So we want our churches to grow, and we do effort to do that. Right. But there's a dark side to that.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to talk about, to almost kind of filter ourselves and others that can get stuck in the church growth. I don't want to use our church growth movement, but I think that might be fair, right? Yeah. The idea that your church and you as a pastor are only successful if your church is actually growing. What are the dangers in all these sorts of things?
So I just Googled it, Phil.
Okay.
I actually asked ChatGPT. The average base, it's changed. So if you're 1 to 49, you're a micro church. If you're 50 to 99, you're a small church. Phil and I are both in that medium church category, right. 100 to 249. So we're not mega church guys. We're guys that a year ago, both of us were closer to that small church category. Mm-hmm. So just all that being said, we've been on this journey and we've learned some things that are kind of not so great. I think the first one, every pastor, when they're on the stage on Sunday, I think wants more people in their sanctuary. Mm-hmm. What I found
that's why we love Easter, because it's full.
Right. What I found to be hard, and is one of the 4 dangers, is all of a sudden there's more people for me to pastor. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I want to preach to more people, but not necessarily pastor more people.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Boy, that is such a true thing. Is we love the big platforms.
Yeah.
But will we take on the spiritual responsibility for the people?
I want to have more people to volunteer. I don't necessarily want to pour into more people. I want to have more givers. I don't necessarily want to disciple more people.
Yep.
Does that make sense? And I could run through my entire church like that, right? Oftentimes the increased stat does bring a higher burden. Mm-hmm. Listen, Jesus says the shepherds are going to stand before the Lord and give an account for how they teach the flock. Jesus' instructions to Peter, feed my sheep. I think that feed my sheep is translated to every minister, every elder, every deacon. I think that translates to us with an expectation that we will feed the sheep of God, God's people. My kid's pastor, David, I talk about him a lot. I've been discipling for 10 years. When we started the church, there was 5 babies and only 2 or 3 were there on a Sunday. He had 4 volunteers and they just did it. You know what I mean? They just did it. And now David pastors 30 kids volunteers and he probably has 30, 40 kids in there on a Sunday. And that's not counting youth that he pours into. Yeah. So he went from, in 4 years, my 25-year-old kids pastor went from pouring into shepherding, guiding, 4 members and a few babies to, 25, 30, 40 kids, 30 volunteers, families. His ministry weight has increased when it comes to souls, 10 times in the last 4 years.
And that's a cost you have to be willing to count.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
4 years ago, I remember him saying, man, he's like, if we could just have 8 kids volunteers, I'd be so happy. Now he has 30. And he has 2 leaders who lead under him. Like now we're training team ministry leaders under our pastor. And he's like, dude, like he told me the other day he stays up at night and thinks about these people sometimes.
Yeah.
Like a kid will come in and he'll drop mom and dad are fighting a lot. And all of a sudden Dave was like, man, is that family going to be okay? And he didn't really have that when he had 4 babies and 5 volunteers.
Yeah.
It was 1 a month. Now it's 1 a week.
I think about Paul talking about is all the persecution he's going through. He lists all I was stoned and shipwrecked and all these beat up, and
It's been very bad.
it's been a bad season. But then he tags on plus the anxiety and burden for all the churches.
Yeah.
Like there is such being a spiritual leader does come with a spiritual responsibility. So again, like we're praying in our church. We did a baptism episode that may or may not drop before this one in the order of things, but we mentioned I would love to get to the point in our church where we have a baptism every week.
Praise God.
Every week. And you guys are the same way, right?
Yeah.
But you know what that means? At minimum, that means 52 brand new believers that someone in our church needs to shepherd. And that ultimately I am going to give an account for their souls.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of growing our church, increasing our reach, seeing our numbers go up because of obviously kingdom impact, not just me, but just like we want to reach people for Jesus. Yeah. But that brings burdens and that brings anxieties.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be ready to count the cost. And so sometimes, honestly, it's better to stay in the smaller church.
Yeah.
Because you can just love those people really well.
Yeah.
And I say not stay in, but like, I wouldn't say don't look down on that kind of ministry because there is a grace there in those ministries. So, practically speaking, Richard, in your church and my church, as you've grown, what are some ways that you've handled the increased burden for spiritual care?
I trained 8 other pastors.
Yeah.
I mean, listen.
And we're training some as well.
Can I just be super transparent with our listeners? And you know this about me, Phil.
You asked for permission, like we're going to not be transparent.
Yeah, not every pastor is going to be good at all the elements of pastoring. In fact, no pastor.
And you're not supposed to be.
Right. Shepherding and care are not my highest gifts. They're probably my lowest.
I can agree.
Yeah. I think I'm great at coaching. I think I'm great at training. I think I'm great, but I think both of those come from being good at teaching.
I'm great. I am personally great at helping someone find solutions. Sure. I'm not as great for being the sympathetic one in their pain.
Yeah.
Like at the hospital,
I'm the same place.
You don't necessarily I'm not saying I won't go and I'll pray for you, but I'm more like, let's look at the Bible and let's figure out how to work forward from this rather than like, man, I just want to sit here and be with you during this. And I'm like, what's next?
Yeah.
So it's this personality, right? It's just a different kind of pastoring. So you need to have people that can to train others that can fill in that void because they need pastors that can do that.
Yeah. And I think that's where we are, bro, is like I hired Keith Conkle, my executive. He's like our executive pastor of ministries because he is an okay preacher. I'm an okay shepherd. He's a great shepherd.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things you got to do to manage, and anyway, when your church is growing, a lot of times the greatest barrier, I think, is more leaders. So like training qualified, biblical, good, moral, integral, high capacity leaders will help your church grow.
Right. And keep that from being a burden too.
But what I would say is a lot of pastors struggle to not be the church chaplain anymore. I do not know every member of my church's name. If you ask me right now, I might get it in a couple hours, but probably not. I just don't know everybody.
Yeah, and we're getting there ourselves.
And you don't have to know everybody, though. What I do know is that I have 8 pastors.
Someone needs to know them.
If I text every one of my pastors, we have a pastor, we have a group me. We use group me for our church. If I message into our elders chat, hey, can you name everyone in your flock? I bet you my pastors can. Because their flocks are 20 to 40 people max.
Yep.
Right? My job is supporting my pastors and my leaders. And that's what I do. And I know all my leaders' names. I know their names, their wife's name, their husband's name, their
stories,
what town they live in.
Yep.
I know where they went to college. You know what I mean? Like, I know them. Yeah, you increase the burden by sharing it. I think of Moses holding up the staff.
Right.
He needed someone to hold his arms up. I think a better way to view that here would be you got to break that staff into sticks and pass them around.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I feel like everyone, the kind of church that I wanted to develop, I feel like everybody in the church should have a relationship with a pastor.
I agree.
That like knows their souls, knows their ups and downs.
Yep.
And if your church doesn't have that, then there's a problem because you're not giving account for the soul. So, but if your church is going to grow, that means there's going to be an increased burden and it's got to be shared. So that's one of the dangers of church growth is now you're spiritually responsible for more people. I would say the second danger, and you and I were like, when we started talking about this a second ago when the mics were off, like we both sighed because the second danger here is that you just get tired of the constant push and the constant drive for the best ever next thing.
Yeah.
Like you're on a rat race.
Yeah.
And that never stops.
So at Canvas, we do 4 campaigns. I love the idea of campaigns because it's easy.
Focused. It's timetables.
We do 4 a year. We do a vision campaign in the fall. Or we do a vision campaign in February because we do this thing in January called Churchwide Sabbath. I've talked about it a couple episodes. We only Sunday morning service. There's no series. It's just kind of random messages.
Yeah.
And small groups. We don't do anything else. No outreach, no events. It's to give our team a break, honestly. February, we always do a vision series. And that's like our goals. It influences our year. Typically 5 to 6 weeks. Sometimes 7. This year we did 24 hours of prayer. So every year we share a vision for the year and we walk through our strategy at Canvas, which is the same. Pray crazy prayers, gather people's tables, give generously, seek share beauty. And I sighed when we talked because I'm like, do I do an 80-hour prayer thing next year? Do you know what I mean? Like,
what's the next thing? What's the next bigger?
Or do I do 2? Like, and that is, I think, the thing that one of the curses of growth is. I hate saying this because the spiritual part of me doesn't like that this is partly true, I think. To some degree, I think work that is rendered to God produces results, which means sometimes more work produces more.
I've had a church planter that I'd say, like, a lot of times church planting is a math game.
Yep.
How many people are you talking to a week? How many people are you inviting a week? How often are you doing outreach? Like, what's your exposure? Like, there is math to ministry.
Yeah, but
so like the more you do, the more sometimes you get fruit. Now that's not always effective. Don't get me like it's not always like 1 + 1, but it's not typically speaking. The more you do, the more results you see. That's not the way God's wired us.
Yeah. Here's though where I will say something changes. Lead down. Mm-hmm. Typically lead up, but lead down here. Who are 5 to 6 people you can invest in right now who could help you to manage the push. So this year, last year we did a summer campaign, 4 weeks. We door knocked 1,000 doors every week. We did an outreach event that Sunday, tons of ads, tons of marketing. This year we're doing it for 10 weeks, but I'm hiring 4 summer staffers. I put one of my pastors in charge of running the summer staff program. I put one of my pastors in charge of the events. Do you see what I'm saying? Like last year it was me. I carried the weight because it was new. Lead down. One of the ways to manage that push is to push together. Listen, if Phil's big old Kia something or another that I got to 100 miles per hour once, if that car...
Did you get to actually 100?
I told you I did, bro. I was speeding.
Yes, Pam is never going to give you her keys again.
I bet you she will. I'm a good driver.
She doesn't listen to this podcast, so she'll know me we're talking about this.
She knows I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, Jim was in the car.
Normally, I get a text message when something like that happens from her car.
No, your thing's disconnected, remember?
Yeah, I stopped paying for the service.
And you loser. But if your car broke down, you and I in mud, we might not be able to push it. But if we had 6 people, we could push it. I think one of the problems is that pastors do more to grow their church, but they don't actually develop more people.
Right.
So,
well, and I think there's 2 things is yes, you can only do so much as an individual. Like maybe the best thing you can do is invest in those 6 leaders. Yeah. The other thing is I think you do need to release the gas from especially events. Yeah. Like Easter does not need to be bigger than last Easter. Like if you had a helicopter like with Easter eggs last year, you don't need 3 helicopters with Easter eggs this year. Yeah. Like it's okay to have not the best ever service, but just a good, faithful service where people can invite their friends to.
Yeah. Amen.
So I think just taking yourself off of the pressure to make everything the best ever. Yeah. It's okay to be good and faithful and do well. Yeah. We actually totally started, and we've talked about this before, but Easter and Christmas, we've totally began to de-emphasize as like pivotal services. Like we want them to be good and quality and like celebrations of the key moments in the church calendar, but we're not trying to make it this best ever event anymore. We want it to be good and faithful. And so it just gets tired when you're trying to outdo yourself every year. So ready for number 3?
Yeah.
Number 3 is your mood and your definition of success is determined by ups and downs in your church.
Okay, so once a month, and I don't care if campus people hear this, I am on Fortnite with Phil on a Sunday night. And
Today
I will quit. Yeah.
I should quit.
We had our highest Sunday ever. And I think it was the next week had our lowest Sunday since merging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you went from like this big peak to like our church's size.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, who would want to pastor a church this size?
And I'm like, we had our best ever at that same number. Just kidding.
No.
Like close to.
No, but there is a level of like, it's just a roller coaster, man. Here's the thing. Anything you look at more, you tend to think about more. And anything you think about more, you care about more. Mm-hmm. I think it's good that I care a lot about our church's growth. And when I say growth, we're not talking about just...
Yeah.
Listen, every number is a soul, a story, a testimony. So like, I care about growth because I want to see revival in my city.
Mm-hmm. I want to make sure our mission's going forward.
Amen.
And ever since I met you, I've been telling you, stop looking from week to week and start looking month to month and even quarter to quarter. Like that's been advice I've given you since you assessed as a church planter.
Yeah.
Is because weeks are going to fluctuate, but trajectory is not.
Yeah. But here's what I think. What I think happens is that we tend to, I think we tend to put our identity in our platform. Mm-hmm. And I think what makes it hard for both of us, if we could just be honest, is that we both work in other roles where we're working with high capacity leaders whose churches are bigger than ours. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking to a dude and you're like, man, that guy's church is like 3 times larger than mine. Sometimes I'm like, it's not jealousy all the time. More so it's just like, well, how come not for me? You know what I mean?
Or like you do feel like you're half the leader, and like that's usually not the case. But like,
right, context matters so much. I have a friend who pastors a large, growing church, doing good work, but he started with like 40 seminary students, and I'm like, that's like 40 trained missionaries ready to go to the mission field.
There is always
I started
a story.
with 9 people who were all new believers besides me and my wife. You know what I mean? Like, and David, right? I had me, Peyton, David, a dog, and like 4 other people.
Yeah, Mirsha, go get it.
Mirsha's good at discipling, bro.
I believe it.
She's the goodest girl. Can we do an episode about 10 things I love about Mirsha?
You know what? They'll probably like that better than the Fortnite episode we're going to record next. I think there's always a story to churches grow. So if you're stuck into the success, like in an Instagram comparison story, right? Let's just kind of like that social media. Here's the okay. Would you post a photo on, if you were like Sunday morning as a pastor?
Yeah.
And you had your lowest Sunday ever, would you stand in the back of your church, take a photo and post on social media, just thankful to be here Sunday morning?
Would you?
I wouldn't.
No, because no one wants to go to a restaurant that's empty.
But I don't think I wouldn't. My first thought would be like, man, I got to show a picture of all these empty seats.
Yeah.
Like people are going
no, you zoom in, you get a different...
You crop it so that way it looks like it's full. No, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Like I'm not saying that that's necessarily rooted in sinful, but I do think it does hint to what we view as successful, and that can be dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah, you tend to pick the big Sundays to take the photo from the back and say, look at this, it's so good. If you only see the big Sundays and not the hard Sundays, you're only getting a half a picture of somebody else's experience.
Right.
So you don't know their story. Like that church that's growing fast. They might have started with 50 trained leaders. They might have had a sending church of 100 people. They might have planted in a community where there are no other faithful churches, or churches that are, just drop your phone. Definitely heard that on the microphone. I've known church planters that have come into a community, and as they planted, 5 other churches imploded. And so they just you looked like they grew by 700%, but the reality is it's all transfer growth.
Right.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just part of the story.
Right.
So if your definition of success is how many people were there on Sunday morning, and your mood is overly impacted by it.
Right.
Where I want to get to is, I want to be okay with low Sundays.
Right.
I want to be not okay with seasons of not growing, where, hey, it's been a month since we've seen a first-time visitor. It's been a month since we've had a baptism, and I don't like that. That's when the warning flags should start going off.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm kind of getting a little preachy here.
No, I completely agree. And that's the thing, is I think we've got to recognize, but also be okay with the fact that our church is going to grow, our church is going to shrink, our church is going to move. Dude, if anyone's ever lost weight, they tend, like, you don't lose a pound every week.
You plateau sometimes, you go fast.
Yeah. And I think something that, I don't know if you said this to me or if I came up with this, but I'm taking credit for either way. You
steal each other's stuff all the time.
Yeah, we do. You're faithful weekly. You plan quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
You freak out yearly. So, like, if I'm, like, down one quarter, I don't necessarily get freaked out. It could just be 1 month that was great last year wasn't great this year because of, like, storms.
And we tend to grow in waves.
Yeah, and
so
if your goal is growth, and you look at, let's say we're recording right now, it's May when we recorded this. If I look at May for the last 4 years since our church has launched, and every May we've increased, even if I'm down from last month, I'm just going to be fine. Yeah. Personally, because last month was Easter.
Well, and a couple of weeks ago, you were discouraged, right? You were looking at your numbers and going, "Hey, we're not hitting it." Then I think you did like the year to year comparison.
Never mind, we're 6% larger.
I'm happy now.
Yeah, it's like I'm fine.
You send me a text message. I'm happy now.
Everything's fine now. Yeah,
again,
literally,
it's okay to be invested in that metric to see, are we fulfilling the mission?
Yep.
It's not okay for your identity and worth before God to be looped into those metrics.
100%.
So here's the fourth thing. Not only is the third thing, just to review, wrong definition of success and health.
Right.
Lastly, I think this flows from that. We tend to push for results over faithfulness.
Yep.
And I would say even like we excuse things that we shouldn't excuse, or we focus on things that maybe we shouldn't focus on. So there is a drive that says whatever works, we're going to do. And when I don't want to use faithfulness as an excuse. Like faithfulness is a spiritual way sometimes of masking like lack of missionary movement, right? I'm just going to be faithful and show up and preach every Sunday. That's good. And we want you to do that. But there's also being faithful also means being a missionary. Being faithful also means helping your people grow. Being faithful also means faithfulness is not just staying.
You know what's crazy? We're called to reap, not to produce. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. We're just called to be obedient.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're called to show up to work. We're called to seek lost people. We're called to care about our city. We're called to pray. We're called to invite. We're called to evangelize. But at the end of the day, Jesus doesn't say, you will build my church if you're good. You will build my church if you work hard enough. He said, I will build my church. And I think a lot of times people will take that line as an excuse for like lack of work or lack of care. But it is possible to care a lot about lostness, but to trust Jesus even more with attendance.
Mm-hmm.
I find it to be very hard, but I think it's possible.
I think 1 Corinthians 4:2, it's required that managers be found faithful, not be found effective necessarily. I mean, obviously effectiveness is part of being faithful.
Sure.
But like, I really think that God calls us to be fruitful, but the measure of that success is faithfulness.
Amen.
So like locking into being a good steward, when numbers are an idol, faithfulness becomes optional.
That's good.
Yeah, you like that?
Did you come up with that?
I stole it
From who?
Chat.
Huh?
That was an AI idea I just saw like the other day.
Well, that's hot.
Yeah, I liked it, didn't you?
Yeah, AI is smart, bro.
Which means it's probably stolen from somebody on the internet.
Someone's gonna be like, copyright.
Yeah, I know. But I think I like the way that chat framed that. And so that when you are driven by numbers and they're your idol, you'll excuse things that shouldn't be excused because your greater vision is this.
Yeah.
So faithfulness to God should be our focus. So yeah, I saw that online and I was like, that's good. So
that's super good. That's hot.
So I think that's the danger of guys like us. And in some ways, we are kind of preaching to ourselves right now because we want to see our churches grow. Richard and I strategize together. We're intentional. We want to see growth. But there's a danger to that. And whether it's the responsibility, there's a gravity to growing a church. So hopefully this is encouraging to you. Any wrap-up thoughts, Richard?
No, I think that at the end of the day, you got to remember God's calling you to him before results. And when you keep that in mind, it's easy to ride the wave. I struggle to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So
that's why I play Fortnite.
Yeah, that's why we play Fortnite.
And take our frustrations out on other people. So, Hey, listener, I hope this episode's been valuable to you. I thank you for tuning in to our conversation. We'd love it if you would subscribe to this podcast so that way you don't miss any other episodes and conversations. If you could also share this with a ministry leader, maybe that's struggling with burnout or church growth and just how to balance all these things. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation. So, hey, follow us on social media, comment on some quotes or some ideas or some insights that you may have to further our conversation. Connect with us on social media there. But until next time, keep leading with purpose while caring for your soul.
Peace out.